Welcome to this week's talk with Matteo from Shoutoutuk UK. We've got Chris and Kiki, and Chris is going to kick off on the first topic.
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about Ferguson and what's going on out in the States at the moment with the shooting of a young 18-year-old man by the name of Michael Brown. Apparently, there was an incident where, this is from the police side, I'll give you the police side of the version first. Apparently that they'd arrested him and he was in the car and he'd escaped and he was running away and the police officer shot him. But two witnesses straight away come out and said that no, that's not what happened. He stopped in the street, held his hands up, and then was gunned down. Now, this is not the first time that we've seen this in the States at all. And I've got a fact: every 28 hours, an African American man is shot by a police officer. That's like 28 hours. You're like, what? So after this, there was a protest in the day towards the police station and towards the police, asking to know what's happened and getting some confirmation. And then it kind of broke into a kind of riot with some looting. Then the following day, yesterday, the protesters gathered outside the police station again, just a bunch of normal people just wanting to get some answers. And all of a sudden, the police came out military style. I mean, the armaments that they had, I don't know if you know of the LRAD system, which is a sonic device that is pointed at protesters and is meant to disorientate you. This is on top of a massive super fucking Humvee thing. Not only did we have that, but we had like use of police dogs and people standing there and being charged down by cops with MP5s. It looked like complete martial law had set in. So Anonymous have stepped up and have said that they've got the name of the police officer that's alleged to have shot him, and they've released it. I ain't gonna say the name of it because like I can't say the name of it. It's not him. I don't know. I ain't gonna say it. But yeah, it's looking like all of a sudden the United States are reacting to the over-militarization of their police that's been happening for years now, and all of a sudden it's like, well, hold on a second. It's coming to a small town. The population, Ferguson's only got a population of 21,000. So they're now thinking, well, hold on a second, this could be the small town. Majority of the population is African American, but the most of the police force percentage is white. And allegedly, the police superintendent, or the head honcho, has a big flag of a big Confederate flag in his front room. So it is alleged to have said. So there's some real big issues going on there, and things. I think like you're just seeing a police state kick in, man.
Yeah. The amount of pictures and so forth that were coming out of there, and just the amount of footage, and it's a small army against a load of civilians that want justice. Or even, I mean, even if in the worst case scenario, say the police actually did have a right to shoot this man because he was being threatening and so forth, the police should have come out with it and said what actually happened rather than hiding it by cause of violence. Because from what it seemed like from, I think, everybody in the outside world, anybody outside of that city, just seems like the police have made a mistake, a big mistake, if someone's lost a life, and now to justify what they've done, they're now creating more violence to say, well, look what's happening here. You know, we have to be so harsh because there is so much violence in this town. It's losing control, etc., etc. It's almost like they're trying to create a justifiable response to what's happened, and it is shocking. And I mean, America has a huge amount of issues with race relations and huge amounts of racism in that country, from the institute to black people in that country and so forth. And it just seems that this is definitely not going to help it at all. And to see the amount of tear gas coming out. But what I thought was quite beautiful in a way was all the activists around the world and so forth communicating with each other. You know, giving advice about how to not get hurt by tear gas, giving advice of how to deal with the police safely, how to protest safely, how to actually
That came from Palestinians. That came from Palestinians. I saw the tweet and that earlier. Yeah, Palestinians were sending that over, and it was the same with Anonymous with Egypt, wasn't it? It was. But did you see? Sorry to butt into you, but did you see the journalists, the Al Jazeera journalists, getting gassed, CS gassed, right by there, and two other. Well, you see them and the camera, and they fire the gas at them, the tear gas at them. Then, as they run off, the police go and shut all their cameras down. Then there was two journalists arrested in McDonald's.
Yeah, the Huffington Post journalists.
And the New York Post as well, I think it was.
I don't know the other guys.
Those were arrested.
The Huffington Post was there, but yeah.
Yeah, so like a crackdown on media. Straight away, it's like, what? Hold on, what's going on?
Isn't this very reminiscent of what started the 2010 riots in London? The inequality and the suppression of the people, especially the people of the black community, have turned, and they're just not taking this shit anymore. I think, personally, I think that is entirely it. It's not just that somebody got shot, it's the fact that they've been cut, constantly cut to all their services, degrade, you know, they're totally dragged through the mill, and it's one of those situations, again, where you look at it, and in every place where we sort of are and where we go, it seems to be that they are, they're taking it upon themselves to take down a certain community, and especially ethnicity comes into this a lot lately. This is turning into some form of race kind of war almost.
Well, I mean, I would have said, I mean, looking at the Ferguson thing, I would have said from the American perspective, the race issue has always been there anyway. I mean, the police are, in general, when you look at Western countries, I think America's police has probably got one of the worst reputations when it comes to racism. But yes, no, you're right. I think it is something that is coming out from. It's not. I mean, it's not. Their reaction here is not because a man has been shot. I mean, it is obviously that's more like a spark of enough's enough. In a sense, I think this has been building up almost like across the West. You know, as you said, you can see it in the London riots where one man, an unarmed man, which then the police, you know, well, we know the story, and that acted as a spark almost again from what is happening in this austerity stuff, and yet we have money for war, but when we ask for, you know, money for schools, healthcare, education, and so forth, oh, we have no money. You know, the country's broke. All in this together, to quote a prime minister, and yet we managed to spend billions on weapons, and even more so on surveillance and security. So it's a gapping, it's a reaction of that, and what the states need to realize is that just because you gas a load of journalists, professional journalists, doesn't mean that the story's not going to get out there, because the internet exists, everyone has a mobile phone now, and all that you're doing is all this is, I think, is an archaic response to trying to shut down a situation so that they can move in really aggressively, destroy the protest, and then bring back what they would consider civil situation. What they keep forgetting is that everybody has a phone, which is why we could see, for example, as you said, the Al Jazeera journalists getting gassed, because if there wasn't a phone, we wouldn't be able to catch that.
But don't you also think, though, that why you're seeing this and that it comes directly from the Pentagon, that they actually support these projects to militarize the police? That is a direct provocation, and like Kiki says, you know, when you're thinking about this in a race war, you think of the association. If you're a different colour, you're probably a different religion. Well, we're fighting Muslims. It all comes down to this kind of rhetoric that they can simply justify things with that way to push some more archaic views upon us. Because 9/11, like you said just then, you have 9/11. Well, we need more surveillance. We've got to go, and everyone was happy to relinquish that whole counterbalance and margin. Well, we're going to nick more of your civil liberties and rights for your own safety and protection, and you must trust our judgment no matter what. That is never a good thing to have. In empires and in governments that have, and all through history, it has never worked out good. It's ended up falling apart.
It's never worked out well for 90% of the people. Because obviously the people on the other end, I mean, this is perfect for them. And this is something that it's very, very old, you know, this method of let's create something, let's create a fear, you know, call it an external threat, call it terrorism, call it domestic violence, call it not domestic in the homes, I mean, but like violence in your country. And like this thing, I mean, what's going to happen, I think, once this protest, well, once this rioting calms down, whatever you want to call it, what that state is then going to call for is probably more power to the police, less power for your privacy. It's like,
which
for
is
example,
exactly what happened with the London riots. Once the London riots occurred, there was an up in CCTV, there was an up in the amount of there was an up in the amount of police that were involved in it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like that same thing.
Cave's got. I'm in. Cave's got.
One in, one out. We're doing tag team chats now.
They don't want us in together.
But no, she was 100% right with the London riots.
Yeah.
100% right. He was like with David Cameron and his you know, Cameron's internet safety wall. Did you see that when they he said, "Oh, it's for the children, it's for the children." When afterwards they came out with the leaks that actually he was they were trying to move in and effectively monopolize the internet to the point where the government could see and control everything. Of course, it never worked, and what ended up happening is that it ended up blocking all these sex education sites, as well as GPT news sites, and all the rest of it, which they quickly reversed because it was one of the worst thought-out policies this government has yet to do. I'm pretty sure they come up with.
So
you couldn't come up with anything bunch of people.
They blocked all the like Childline and SPCC and all the help things for kids.
Yeah.
When it first went through.
It just shows that. Yeah.
But Childline's probably a good thing anyway. Probably did a few kids favour.
Well, it's meant to filter out the calls of elitists anyway, weren't it? Kids that were trying to get MPs and things like that, and celebrities, filter out the calls of the ones that have been. Well, that's apparently what said. I believe the people over the politicians. So, yeah.
Wow, because people who sang also have been saying a lot of things about Richard, which his house was raided today, wasn't it?
Yes, his house. Cliff Richard's house was raided today.
Yeah.
I saw it. P saw it. I think P saw it before me. And then I was like, "Oh, have you guys seen this?" And he's like, "No, I've just seen it." And I'm like, I couldn't believe it because it's what's been a lot of people say as especially with Elm House and links that apparently he had there and his name being changed and him going allegedly.
Well, I don't think there's going to be much.
Allegedly.
I don't think there's going to be much mistletoe.
Yeah, we're
Oh, that's. I don't know whether we can condone any like kind of Cliff Richard joke. Whether we should applaud you for your outstanding wit, or
my
just groan at you for your bad taste.
Yeah, I can't wait till a lot of them are bloody slammed in prison. I really can't.
No.
Next convo.
It's all awful now, and you know, the
Please
young
break it
people,
up.
right? Young people, they must have started when they was young. It seems to me that they're just like throwing the old codgers at us to appease us a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, like get themselves off the hook for the real daddies that they want. Do you know what I mean? It's hide these buggers so we'll out Rolf Harris, he's nearly dead. We'll out Cliff Richard, he's had his time and earned the money that we really needed. Nobody alive really cares about it anymore. Well, you get the odd person, it's like, ooh, Cliff. It's like, yeah, no.
Well, you wheel out the token guys, don't you? You just do, like token gestures. There you go, take that, appease you and everything like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, who's got next subject then?
Who wants to go next?
Tag team, come on, tag. Go on.
So I want to talk today about ISIS, the growing threat in the supposed growing threat in the Middle East, and I mean, many want to talk about ISIS as an example of how can we possibly still see as Western interference in other places good after the sort of rollout of continuous of these organizations that the West use for one thing, and then completely forgetting that these people have their own agenda, which they are going to pursue once they have loads of money. They are going to pursue once they have guns and organization, and of course one of the best military training in the world. I just don't see how people, you know, can't see that. And I mean, just to give a bit of background, I think ISIS now, they recently raided Mosul, and I mean they own parts of oh, what is that? My geography's failing me right now.
They own most of Iraq.
Most of Iraq and
Syria?
Syria, isn't it?
No,
Yeah, I'm sure it's.
they're not
Is
in
it not?
Syria. Oh, well, I didn't think
Yeah,
they
they are in
Hold
Syria.
on.
They are in
Do you
Syria.
know what? I would take a look at my little phone while you carry on.
And so I mean they are quite a presence now in the Middle East, and they are obviously, I mean, systematically disintegrating and making the Catholic organization, the Catholic peoples there and so forth to migrate and move while they're getting robbed along the way, etc. So there's a lot of injustice going on there. And but what I think is more shocking, rather than sort of ISIS, which frankly, since the Americans or the West funded them in the Syrian war, I think it was just something that was going to come eventually. Because if you look at America's track record, or the West's track record rather, should I say, when funding organizations, independent private armies, which is basically what they are, with the Mujahideen prior to that, and various others. Yes, they will serve your purpose while you're paying them, because obviously they want the money that you're giving them, they want the arms and they want the training. But afterwards, they're not just going to suddenly give it all up and go back to farming. It just doesn't work like that. You're giving these people that have, I mean, the ISIS leader, for example, has his own vision. He is a leader. He can speak well. I mean, the reason why he set up the organization in the first place is because he has a vision. Prior to Western funding, that was all it was. It was an isolated group that didn't have a lot of pull, didn't have a lot of funding, didn't have a lot of measure to do anything else. Couldn't try to challenge states. Now, with the funding, with the training, with the arms, they have the power to challenge states. And now what the West is doing now, they're funding another group to take care of the group they originally funded, which are the Kurdish militants. So it's almost like trying to solve one problem by creating a future problem again. Now, I'm not saying to not fund the Kurds, because ISIS is growing massively in power, or so the media keep telling us. We don't actually know how true that is or not. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like this continuous sort of trick where we fund one organization. Oh damn, they've grown a mind of their own. We didn't think they would do. We think they'd go back to farming after we give them millions of dollars and weapons. So now we need to fund another group and another. I don't know. I don't see how anybody in the U.S. government at one point, at any time in history, in the last couple of generations, couldn't at one point say, you know what, it might be a bad idea funding these fundamentalist organizations, because in the end they're not going to do what we want.
From what I understand of it, my sort of New World Order for Dummies kind of look on it is for years and years this has been the best thing. The CIA train people like Osama bin Laden and put them into place and make up these names, Al Qaeda, ISIS and things like that. Give these people the control to take out the Middle East. No, don't know. Israel's fine, even though Israel's definitely on their lips. But they'll wait for them to take out these countries for them and then take them out once they've done that job before they even get close to Israel. And this is what I feel like they've been doing all the time. They've always done this. The corporations have backed both sides of the wars. They created this. They made this able to happen. The US, Israel and UK have basically funded ISIS to go into these countries, trained up, and then think, right, yeah, let's let them rip these people to shreds who are going against us and supporting. If we possibly got together with the Middle East, there'd be a chance there that we could take this Zionist / Illuminati / New World Order, whatever you want to call it, 8 people running the world kind of thing, we could take this down. But while we're separate and divided, which ISIS and Al Qaeda happily do, because they want this extremist regime, while we've got that, and then just take them out. What's Israel got, like 80 nukes or something like that?
I got told earlier about 100 or so nukes.
But I mean, the nukes thing is I don't know. I mean, the nukes thing always seems like an empty threat, because I don't think any country's ever. I mean,
They realised after the Cold War, though, man, didn't they? They realised after the Cold War, the nuke option, no matter what, is just an inevitability to fuck everyone up.
Apocalypse. It'd be an apocalypse.
Yeah, it is. And if you want to go to the state of, you know, like you say, they've been doing this throughout history. Especially modern history and the rise of neoliberalism. That's their position. That's what they want to destabilise and keep things destabilised. Then they can monopolise. Corporate sponsorship can go in there and run stuff and make them banana republics. That's what they want to do. Keep everything unstable so they can just quietly put their military bases in and become the empire they are now.
Yeah,
800
look at
military
Iraq.
bases.
Look at Iraq. Those military bases and those embassies were never meant to be temporary. They were always meant to be permanent. You don't build structures like that and then walk away from them. They never meant to walk away. It was always.
It's like the British did when they had an empire. You know, the British did the exact same thing. It's just the only difference is that the British used to colour little bits in red. That is literally the only difference. The British used to colour little bits in red and put flags everywhere. Now the difference is that the Americans have to be a little bit more subtle. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing. The thing
that I find quite funny, to not to diminish the plight of the Yazidis, was it? Yeah, Yazidis. The tribe Yazidis, I think it was, on the mountaintop. Bombing becomes an option. Now, you leave arms, you go into a country for no need, under false pretenses. You destabilise it after people tell you what is going to happen. Then you leave claiming victory, and then the one thing that you didn't want to happen actually fucking happens. So if you wouldn't have toppled Saddam and given us those great pictures of toppling that statue, which was a complete setup of going into Baghdad and ripping down the big statue of Saddam, you wouldn't have needed to have done this, because you would... Goes back, Rumsfeld was there with him. They was connected to it. It was all run. So they just didn't like his position because he started to change. So we need to destabilise it. Now they've got more excuses to go back in now with arms, sell arms. That's the whole thing. The war machine. You know, it is just that.
The racket never meant to end.
I mean, the people that these people that were in government rather before they were toppled. You know, even in the Arab Spring, all these dictators were put in place by America to serve a purpose. Then these dictators started to get fresh ideas about, actually, we're the ones with the oil, we're all connected, we're all similar in our beliefs, why don't we gang up and try and hit? And the problem is, they probably, in America's eyes, they probably got too big for their boots. They started to bite the hand that feeds them, in a way. So the Americans turned around and said, right, we don't need you anymore.
Well, their initial goal is to get ISIS into Iran, isn't it? They want to destabilise Iran because it's become quite a power.
But they want to destabilise the whole Middle East, though.
Well, they do, but Iran has become the bigger threat. And once Iran has almost, it has to protect Syria. It has to protect, and this ISIS keeps invading. ISIS, I'm just going to call it CIA. Keeps invading these countries that Russia and Iran and places like that are supporting in treaties and things like that. There's only so long you can flick the nose of these countries before it kicks off. Iran, they want Iran. Iran has some oil. We've got some shit for you to give. We've become a bit powerful. Stick ISIS in there, let them kill a few people, then take ISIS out.
Haven't you noticed that it's almost like the systematic takeover of the world? You know, it's almost like a game of Risk if you've ever played.
Yeah, very, I think so.
But then you go back to the list, though. You go back to the list, though, don't you, of a few years back of the 7 to 9 countries that they still wanted, the IMF still wanted.
Iran
and you look, well, you just look at everyone on that list, and they are being destabilised. They're in the process of being destabilised. Africa, Somalia, all that, whether it's Ebola.
This is a Holocaust on a whole new level.
I mean, what it is total. It is total war in its very real sense. Because let's not be wrong. Because if Syria has fallen, the Middle East has fallen, with the exception of Iran. If they fall, let's not be mistaken. The West or other America will be eventually gunning for Russia and China, who are the
only two left.
Other superpowers that stand up against American total dominance. You know, they want what they used to have at the fall of the USSR. Russia has now gone back in its power state, never to the point where it was, of course, but they are quite powerful. The Chinese, no question of it, they're incredibly powerful. And this is scaring America because America can do what the hell they want to the world. If you look at the Middle East now, for example, they don't care about the rest of the country. All they want, and what they realized is before, we have to set up these dictators we give them loads of money to run the country for us. Now what they've realized is all we need is the corporations to go over there, buy up the land that has oil or whatever, set up compounds there, protect that compound. Who cares if people die? We don't need them.
Price on the bodies, man. Price on the bodies.
I don't know. I mean, it's a very sort of grim view of the world, but.
Oh man, but it looks that way. You can't help but look at that way if you look at it in a critical way. If you're taking some of this evidence and what we're seeing, then that's what it leads out to be. What do you reckon, P?
I joined mid-conversation, so it's a bit hard for me to.
Oh, we was just talking about ISIS.
I went out.
We was chatting. Matteo said about ISIS and.
But I caught the end, and you were going on about Russia, and then you have to look at like Russia's basically said like fuck off, and it so Ecuador have said they don't need permission to trade with Russia, and Russia have tried to get a oil deal straight with Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
So they're going to not really listen to sanctions, but all of this gunning for Russia at the moment, you got to think it's going to, if it could stabilise the dollar further, push for the collapse on the dollar, if then people stop just using dollars for oil.
I mean, that would be a huge blow to the US.
I think that's the one thing that they're trying to avoid, though, isn't it? They're really clamouring for it. We can see it happening. We know that this is like pretty much inevitable. Russia's going to do a switch, and China's going to be involved, and they're going to look to just make a shift. And America is going to have to say, well, hold on, whether they wait until the collapse of the dollar, or they help along to the collapse of the dollar and then go after it. I don't know which way they want to go. I don't know whether they want to collapse it or they want to wait until it collapses itself. But it is going to fucking go. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, I think the Americans are a little bit also in denial about that happening, because the only reason why they can... I mean, America's military, just to put in perspective, they spend, I think it's 5 times more on their armed forces than the rest of the world put together. One country spends 5 times more than the rest of the world in military capability, and the only reason why they can do that is because they have an infinite amount of money. Because if the dollar is being traded,
I heard they have now got enough ammunition for 6 bullets for each person who resides in the US.
There was talk that the FBI was stockpiling ammunition. That was like Alex Jones stuff and coming out, but it is like
their military and the bullets that they've bought are 6 times the amount of population of the US.
I know that. I was going to say, yeah.
That's ridiculous amount.
So they've armed themselves to wipe something out. One way.
Yeah, they have been storing, but I know that I've seen that on a few things.
Well, I mean.
Because they don't care if their people starve, just as long as they've got the ammunition.
Exactly.
And go and grab some more from somewhere.
Well, you know that the biggest consumer of oil and fuel is, don't you, in the world?
US.
US military. It's not the US itself, it's the military. It's the amount of gear that they have. So it's not even the country of the US. So that brings it into another bracket. It's actually the military that need that to sustain itself. Otherwise it will collapse and implode upon itself. And then their military will start to shrink. And then what have they got then? That's that's the problem. They need military bases. They need strategic places, because otherwise, if it's an all sudden dash and they can't even fuel up their ships, then they're done for.
I mean, what's sad to realize is that actually the world is being run for the American military. The human race at the moment is an army with a planet attached to it. We're not a planet first, then the people. The planet its sole purpose is to fuel the American army, and I think that's a really, really sad perspective to put in it. But what I think is even slightly, what's chilling is the stockpiling, yes, but also the fact that America has got one of the biggest oil reserves in the world. I think if the oil ran out tomorrow, I think they could last, what was it, about 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
With the current supply of oil they have. So they're clearly preparing for something, or they're worried that something may happen. What I think is worrying, though, is that if you, for example, were somebody that was used to luxury, that was used to all the riches that capitalism gave you because you're a billionaire, and then suddenly you were realizing the world was going to implode on itself, and you could either go down gracefully and admit you were wrong, give all your stuff back, and so allow it to be taken, or would you fight and potentially destroy the world to not forsake yourself?
Well, in America, you've got the Ozark building, which that is some fucked up building there. I don't know what the hell that is. That is like, you know, they didn't have to need planning permission because it was a residential building, but it's like so many times bigger than Aaron Spelling's building. It's so many times bigger than the White House and things, and the walls are so thick, they're missile proof and bullet proof, and you're thinking, what the hell is this? Because it was built by the head of security, some bloke who did all the satellites and everything. It's like top notch in America. And then underneath you've got a complete network where rail and lorries go through, because the Ozarks is built on caves. They stretch for miles.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's quite frightening to see.
I mean, that is very frightening.
Yeah. I had nightmares after it, I'll admit.
Well,
I was like, oh,
And the other thing is, this place is tiny, and in proportion to the amount of people per banks in New York, compared to the amount of banks in this really tiny outback American town, they're like, why are all these banks here?
yeah, there's loads of banks to one town, isn't there? It's really odd. You drive through bank, 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 corner shop, bank, 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 farm. It's like not the area you'd have that amount of banks. It's just not. It's like some sort of outback area that you just wouldn't generally. You'd probably have a bank, but I wouldn't say you'd have the amount of banks that they've got there.
Well, I mean, if we're totally honest, if you were the leader of the United States, you would expect at some point to be confronted. I mean, you know, we averted war in the Cold War not because people scaled down the Cold War, it's because one of the superpowers imploded on itself. That's the only reason why they didn't eventually nuke each other. You know, it wasn't because the American president and the Russian president suddenly grew brains. It was simply because one of them couldn't sustain what it was doing.
Yeah.
And imploded on itself before the other one did, because they were both running on bankruptcy. You know, their militaries were being so overspent on armies that they were going to implode on itself, because Russia was newer, the USSR was newer, and it just imploded first. You know, so we were going to go into a nuclear war eventually if they just kept growing and growing and growing. Now, the worrying thing, of course, is that America clearly feels threatened by the power shift in the world. Otherwise, it wouldn't be doing the aggressive and stupid things that they're doing to its own people and to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we lining up for the same sort of thing? And I don't see China.
I would say this is now the time. The dollar is collapsing, and everyone's quite aware of the fact that the US is now stepping down ranks, and it's going down quite a way down the ladder. It's not even stepping down ranks to second base, is it? It's got to be quite a pride bashing for them. And you've got a bunch of new people to move into this. Now they're promoting this one world government, you know, this one world army, all this kind of business. This is the daddy of the top ranks of the exchange rate, the petrodollar, everything. This next daddy is going to rule the world again in a totally different way than what America ever have done. It's probably the way America always wanted to rule it, you know. But they've gone in the water now. At the end of the day, they're on totally close to a collapse. And the way I see it is, we're now we are in World War III already. I think we've entered into World War III. I don't doubt that.
I hate to say it, but the more that I see, there's too many fucking coincidences going on for it not to be something else behind it. You know, you can just, like, logically thinking, I've been doing this close to a year now, and the consumption of information that I have had to absorb within a year, and look at it logically, I can't see anything else leading it to something kind of entity taking control and doing something, manipulating this from behind the lines. Now, whatever that entity or name of that, that's open to debate for everyone to. But whether you want to call it Illuminati, New World Order, or an elite banking group, or whatever it is that you want to call it, someone is pulling the strings behind shit. This is designed for this way. This system is now being completely manipulated for one means, and that is war. It is just nothing but war. Destabilization, keep everyone like that. We'll grab the last bit of resources, we'll build our big concrete bunkers, and then when the shit hits the fan, we're gone, and then we'll just create a new population. I hate to sound so pessimistic, but damn, it doesn't look very good. It's not looking good for the situations that we got going on globally.
We've got internet this time round, and people are kind of, will there be enough people that will enter in this time? It takes participation to get into a war.
I think the thing is, people are fed up with the bullshit. They're seeing it everywhere. They're beginning to wake up to everything being bullshit. You know, the taxes, the thing, everything. Every day there's something else that makes somebody think, what the hell? What is the point?
You see, the thing about it is, and this, what's great about history is that, and sorry to keep bringing it up to that, but it is almost like a crystal ball. You know, I mean, you've got the EDL this time, and the other side is called, or the united sort of peoples that are thinking of a different system and so forth would be called Anonymous, Wave of Action, Occupy, or whatever you want to call it. Back then, they were just called communists or socialists, whatever. The point is that, I mean, you're always going to find people for war because you just got to manipulate the ignorance in society. And in this case, I mean, look how many EDL members you have in the UK. Look how many people voted in the last election. Look at the huge amount of right-wing radicalism throughout the whole of Europe.
And also the stepping up of commemorates and of World War I and II. We shouldn't be glorifying that shit. These people died, and now we know these people died for the benefit of these I don't even know what to call them.
Elitists.
Elitists.
I mean, these
people died.
Because the Second World War could have been completely avoided if the Nazi Party didn't have the money they had. Because if the BNP, for example, had millions of dollars chucked at them, like the Nazi Party had, they'll be elected at the next election. You know,
we just got to look at France for that, though. Mayo, what's happened with France with Le Pen? Look at the rise of Le Pen in France. Yeah, exactly. But Ukraine, you can argue, is a direct coup. You know, we see like a proper US incursion on that. But France,
all that happened in Ukraine is that America found the most right-wing radicals in that country and said, you seem like an alright bunch, here's a load of money, here's a load of guns, as long as you kick out the Russians, I don't care what you do. And that's what happened. So they've now created a civil war in that country. Le Pen, I have no idea where his money's coming from, but he has a lot, I mean, it's not cheap to run a presidential election in France. I couldn't do it. Someone that owns $500,000 wouldn't be able to do it. You need a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So where did that money come from? In the Nazi era.
Usual suspects.
I remember, you know, always thinking, you know, where did people get this money for campaigns and so forth? And afterwards, it came out quite recently that Ford and Disney were the two biggest donors to the Nazi Party. Now, with names like Ford and Disney, you will have enough money to run campaigns time and time again. So there's no shock that he got elected eventually.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to think, well, we're actually finding places. We've got that far. We're starting to plan emergency backups.
Yeah.
It's come to that position where you cannot see anything but with your own sanity, and this is the difficult part, to have some kind of game plan for when the shit hits the fan, because I can't see it not hitting the fan in some kind of way. There's going to be some mass disturbance that's going to happen soon. The tension and unrest in this country is palatable. You can taste it.
I can't see it getting past the 5th of November, to be honest. I can't even. I even look at 5th of November and think, are we going to get that far? you know, I think, are we going to even get to that stage where we can show up in solidarity with each other? Are they going to make it so that that they instigate the 5th of November to a point that there's insurgents and people like that? Because that's what happens with these groups. They wait until we get out en masse, like the Gaza protests. They turn it into something that's wrong. How many people? 100, 170,000, whatever, that turned out for the Gaza protests. You watch them put that shit on the 5th of November. You watch them put that shit on that.
Well, they're probably
Just to
going
make it look bad.
to instigate violence that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And now we're saying this. I want this noted. I want this noted that it's.
Go on then. No, what noted?
I want it noted that we are predicting that there is going to be some form of instigated violence from the government.
What, on November the 5th?
Yeah.
Right wing.
Or the 18th of October.
And I want to talk on behalf of the Million Mass March, because they aren't going to be
should
hit.
we do
They're not
this
here to
next?
support themselves. That they do not represent violence. They will
No,
turn
should we
their
do
back
this?
on anyone who's got violent, intentions. Anyone causing trouble will be expelled from the crowd, because we
loving
will
family.
see you as an instigator. We will see you as the enemy. We don't want trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the
do you wanna
last
move on
one,
to yours?
2013 one. I remember, I remember having what's it called? We were there at it. We covered some of it. I remember seeing people, and it was fascinating seeing people turning their backs on police. Police yelling at protesters to instigate them, and then them simply turning their backs on them and walking off, en masse, just turning their backs against the police. And it was the police that were confronting the protesters. The protesters were trying to be as peaceful as they can possibly be. And of course you're going to get the odd one or two, because that is just humanity. You're going to get a bad person in a batch of 100 people, or 1,000 people.
As an activist, I have to say that you make the pictures show them the aggressor. You know what I mean? If you have to sit on the floor while they're hitting you, let the photos show that you were the victim and not the aggressor, because that's what turns people, the masses, against us.
Yeah, but
when we get
unfortunately...
violent, I mean, you can defend yourself, but I'm just saying that, we should never be the aggressor.
Like Gandhi said, where when the British troops started beating them and running them over with horses, the Indians didn't respond. To the point where the British police, the army, gave up. They joined them because they said that they just didn't feel like men. They didn't feel human by beating people that didn't respond. It's almost like if someone hits you and you respond, then you give them almost like an internal reason to say, okay, this person is aggressive, therefore I can act. If they hit you and you don't respond, it's almost like, well, what's going on? How can I possibly hit you again? Because you.
I have a feeling that the 5th of November, if it is not a catalyst for some kind of violent action, it will be some kind of provocation. There's a huge random element when it comes to a protest that is completely, it's anarchic, how would you say it? Not an anarchist fucking, anarchic, isn't it? Matteo, you'd say it would be an anarchic, yeah, you'd be an anarchic, yeah, anarchic. Kind of rally. These people, like what it stands for with the march straight away, and the way that things are being ramped up.
But let's not forget that we already have the threat, because we have Revolution Britain threatening to march on that day.
That's already happened.
That's already happened. They've threatened us with violence, and also Anonymous took over their page, which probably didn't do it any favours. Was funny as fuck.
Well, I saw a theory. I saw a theory a few like last year, saying that the police want the confrontation with both sides. They want the confrontation to be able to, and they won't segregate this. They'll get them in one place, and then they will leave them. It will kick off to the point where both sides are going against each other. You've only seen it with the fascist march recently in London. They let them. They'll go to the side of the anti-fascists and really can G them up, but won't do anything to the EDL, and they just let them do what they want to do. But the whole point of letting this big raucous riot happen is what they're after. I I heard this here, and it does sound pretty. When you look at the evidence of what we're seeing leading up,
We are run by Nazis. That's the way I see it.
I mean, I can.
We're run by a bunch of Nazis.
But
They
the
want
only
the right
thing-
wing.
Well, at least
I
we've
agree with that. I don't think Revolution Britain, whatever it's called. I don't think they're anywhere part of the government. I just think that they were a happy coincidence in the sense that it's an idiotic right-wing group that all they want to do is fight. Let's be honest, that is all they want to do.
Yeah.
And probably someone at some point in the government thought, Jesus, Christmas has come early this year. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And they're just going. I mean, what's probably going to happen is I doubt they're going to let the right ensue, but all they're going to do is let a little bit of it happen, and then they're going to break it up, and then probably we can kiss goodbye to our right to protest peacefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably a bunch of other rights on the side.
Yeah.
Just to sort of sweeten the deal for them and whatnot. But I definitely think the 5th of November is going to be the catalyst for the final removal of any rights we still have, which are the very few have any rights at all. But
we have lots of media there as well that will be able to record what really happened.
Yeah, but the only thing that I think of when we talk about media and instigators and agent provocateurs, I don't know if any of you have seen that Into the Fire, the one that Dan Dick's done of the G8 meeting, and that they actually noticed agent provocateurs in there. They pull out these guys. Now, there's that element to there. Like, all right, you have Black Bloc, but what's to say if there's another group of masked people doing something that all the filming that we have is not going to change the fact that we're going to be infiltrated. There's that possibility that I do believe any instigation of violence.
Revolution Britain have said they are going to blend in with the crowd, right? They are going to blend in with the crowd and then kick off.
Why?
Because they like to fight. They just like to fight. I don't know, to be honest. I really don't. I have no understanding of it. I'm just like, where the fuck did this come from? But I don't know how it ended up with Anonymous and Rev Britain. I think, to be honest, they have a few racist posts and comments on their page. Anonymous pulled them up on it, and then it was like, right, that's it, it's war. And it was like, oh dear, can't even like discuss the debate here. It's really hard. And we got
debate
2,000.
It's a long ongoing thing because Revolution Britain is run by somebody who is from EDL, and Anonymous hack EDL every 5 minutes. So Anonymous and EDL, long-going issue. They take down their site.
But you know what's sad is that you got to think of it this way. I mean, these people have to be, and I'm sorry to be like that, but they really do have to. Revolution Britain and EDL, they have to be brainless, or they brain dead.
Have you seen their new word?
Something physically wrong because. To be able to grow old and to say, you have to look at your son or daughter and look into their eyes and say, I was the reason why the world is so fucked up. I was the reason why these people that have tried to change it for the better could not do it. I'm the reason why we're living in hell.
You're talking like someone that's got common sense. These fuckers have got none. We're talking about Neanderthals. We're talking about brainwashed fucktards that have got no.
Walk around.
Indoctrinated, mate. You're talking about extremists, didn't we? Yeah, I can't.
This isn't the white people. It's them brown-skinned people. What the fuck?
Those ones that look different than me.
Not me.
I grew up in a skinhead household, man, when I was like really fucking young, and I can tell you now that these guys see nothing wrong in their views. They feel fully justified in what they're doing. Not even in later life have they've somewhat become ashamed of any of it. No, they're still happy to have these huge, ridiculous views that are antiquated. They are indoctrinated into this, brainwashed like there's domestic extremists. If you want domestic extremists, they're there. There you go. Job done.
You know what? I mean, what I find ridiculous and almost mental about it all is that if you look at, they all. I mean, a lot of these skinheads, the EDL and so forth, always support the Nazis. They sort of say, Hitler was right, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at... this is what I always find puzzling, and I want to be careful, by the way I say this.
I know what you can say.
Huh?
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say that if you listen to the interviews of Nazis in Germany, in the Nazi party, they would be able to talk calmly about you about their views. So a journalist could come up to them and say, okay, why do you hate the Jews? And they'll give a systematic reason as to why. Why do you believe in this? And I mean, you're probably not going to agree with it. In fact, I know most people wouldn't nowadays. But what is interesting is they have a system. You can see the thought process as to why they believe that, and they can have a calm discussion with you. Talking
Goebbels,
yeah, it's like
Goebbels understood propaganda, though, didn't he? Goebbels just reeked and understood propaganda and knew that he could mask extremism in polite conversation. You know, you can do it as a master of sarcasm does it.
Yeah, we tortured some.
Even if you go back in. If you go back though, and like the time that Hitler managed to convince lots of people of that way of thinking, it was the same thing. There was a recession and people living in poverty, and they all had to point the finger at someone and demonise someone, and that's how they managed to build such hate. That's what it started with. It's their fault that there's no food. It's their fault that there's no work.
They've done a better job this time round, because what they're doing, they're going on about, yeah, we support the Nazis, we want the Jews out. But when they talk about Jews, now they've got this Israeli state. I'm sorry, but Israel is a Jewish state, right? I'm not going to butter it up. It's a Jewish state. So now they're saying Hitler was right, but we're going to support the Jews because they're against the Muslims.
Yeah, no, I mean, Hitler would be... I don't get it. It makes no sense. Hitler's main sort of rule, if anything, was hatred of the Jews.
Yeah.
You can't support
although he did ethnic cleanse a lot, whether just not just Jews, you know.
No, he hated everybody respectively, apart from white Germans. But he had special hatred towards Jewish people, which he
saved that special little feeling for the rest of
little bit of like, and then he obviously hated everybody else, but the Jews are sort of on a pedestal of their own of hatred. But I mean, I disagree. They haven't done a better job this time. I think if you look at it from Mussolini's perspective, from Hitler's. I mean, these people took power in states. They managed to rally enough people to then take power because the leadership was smart. They had brains. You may not agree with their laws, but you do have to give credit where credit's due. As you said, Goebbels understood marketing to the point of precision. Hitler was a great orator. Mussolini was a great orator. These people, thank the Lord, have nothing of intelligence when it comes to leadership. Yes, they have muscle. Yes, they have a load of ignorant people that will follow anybody. But their leaders are terrible, with the exception of obviously Nigel Farage, who has actually gained quite a lot of ground in recent years.
Only because of propaganda, though. Only because he's got a charisma. That's the only thing that could sway people's and ideas and thoughts in that direction would be Matteo, wouldn't it? That they would obviously need some kind of state-run media that would be promoting the ideas of that. We don't.
I just keep sharing
BBC.
a video of him being egged. It's like, yeah, literally got egged, you know what I mean? That was brilliant. That was a moment. I love that one. And you've got someone coming out of a pub, going into a pub, while he's being interviewed on the outside, and they walk past and he's like, and you think, oh, bang on. Bang on. He's got no real respect. He's absolutely got no real respect. He's just followed by a bunch of fluoridated flock of sheep, and I'm sorry, but that's about as much as it is now. You are a sheep if you think the immigrants have torn this country to pieces. You are absolutely fluoridated, and your senses have been dulled to a point where you can't think beyond the paradigm that the government and the BBC are offering you.
Yeah.
Because anyone that thinks that anymore is seriously just needs a little bit of help.
It's almost a sense of pity, isn't it?
Yeah, because the people I speak to, I think, are you all right to live on your own? Do you need some help with that?
But that's the problem. Those are the guys who are in control.
Well, no, the guys in control are smart because they know that if they link themselves with something like the BBC, that's something like EDL or whatever. I mean, the EDL is too hot to tag. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a load of conservatives, for example, feel the same as the EDL. Would love to join them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. But they could never do it because of their because the EDL is just. I mean, if they did that, then the conservatives would lose the respect of the middle class, of the middle ground, which is effectively what decides. You know,
I don't know though, because the middle class has been. If you look at the way that the brainwashing goes with the middle class have now attained to. Like you say, the majority of the middle class are singing from the same hymn sheet. They are saying this rhetoric.
Some.
This is why they voted.
Majority. I would say they're comfortably living. I would say a lot of it, they are throwing the middle class at the poor class, which is why you've got the propaganda from the Sun and the BBC. It's the benefits, it's the immigrants, and if you're comfortable living,
The middle class wouldn't vote for the BNP, for example. They wouldn't vote for the EDL. They would vote for the Conservatives because they think, you know, I mean, the middle class is those kind of people that would come out with the saying, "I'm not racist, but there's black people."
But I'll vote for UKIP.
You know,
I'll vote for UKIP. That's the thing.
I've got black friends.
But,
yeah, I know this type. Yeah.
you know, which is like, I mean, they sort of make themselves think, well, I'm not racist. These Muslims just want to be hated because they're all extremists. Because, you know, they sort of have these ideas that they think, okay,
These
they're not.
Muslimics.
Huh?
These Muslimics. That's the new one from the. That was one from the EDL, weren't it? They made up their own word. I love it. I don't know if that's going to go in the Oxford Dictionary anytime soon.
Oh God, please no.
Fantastic, absolute fantastic. And you watch these people, and I think you're right. There is a bit of pity, but to be honest, many more football matches. If England get beaten much more in the finals and cups and things like this, I think they'll wipe themselves out. I don't think we'll have to worry about it much.
Well, that's the thing. All these people are the ones that go out and side and fight between football teams. They're not, you know, all they want to do is fight. They don't really care against who it is.
Yeah, yeah. They complain about. I'm not bringing this up. I actually haven't got a massive amount of knowledge on Hillsborough, but Hillsborough was the fans, was it not?
No. What it was that they let in the gates. They opened the gates. What happened was that there was so many people outside and the police couldn't control it, so they opened the gates, and what happened is people flooded in. And as they flooded in, people was telling the police, and this was at the times of football riots where there was the a lot of containment, a lot of football violence.
But it was a football riot.
Well, it wasn't a riot, no, because it became a stampede. It became a stampede because people couldn't get out. The police had opened the gates and let them go in. Then
the policeman opened the gates and let people in without tickets. He let too many people into the stadium. There was no room for them to go. They started pushing on the fence because they were dying and getting squashed. The police presumed a riot was breaking out and they were trying for a pitch invasion and contained them in that space where 96 people died, including adults and children.
And then they blamed them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then rifled their pockets. But they rifled their pockets first. Took false misinformation.
What did they say in the papers? That the people robbed them while they were dying. That the football fans were. That they absolutely degraded those people and those families, and they've denied them justice for years.
This is like the one thing that I thought
but have they
may
not used that as
sway them.
Propaganda to further what's happened now? Do you know what I mean?
No,
it's a propaganda.
No, they're trying.
I felt
they're trying to cult it.
When they were trying to, with the 2010 riots, I felt they used every failed football match against, because they called it the Chav riots, didn't they? The Chav riots. It was a bunch of chavs. It weren't the fact that a young black dude got shot in an execution style.
Well, the cases of football violence have gone down. Like football violence has gone down quite a dramatic amount compared to what it was. You know, after Hillsborough, the rules had changed, man. The rules they changed. They took away the fences and made it all seater purely because of that tragedy. I just thought Hillsborough could have kicked off things because it could have awoken every football fan, and a lot of football fans that I spoke to resonated with them. And I thought, well, look, if you just pay attention to this and start taking a look at this, this could have fucking been you. Now, every year the Premiership do these huge memorial acts, and yeah, they're rightly and justly so have memorials for this event because it was a tragic event. But the people and the perpetrators that let it happen are not getting taken to justice, and it's taken so long.
This is the thing, right? You have got an exact situation that is brewing as we speak now, and not just through. The problem is the football fans. They can be violent. I've been headbutted. I've been, but obviously anonymous. We're not massive fans of racist people, and the majority wear football tops when you go to these. I'm sorry, but it's the conscientious that you get when you go to these marches and the EDL turn up. They've got their football tops on a lot of the time, and they're chanting like they're in a football stadium. And the thing is, after with this thing that's just happened, you can see that it can become exactly the same as what it would on either side. They don't want us to join these people, because when you look at it, what happened at Hillsborough, they've got no different reason from us to be angry. Same as Mark Duggan, the same as this. It's all instigated, all done exactly the way that they want it to be done. They booed up that time. They booed up. They didn't. I don't think they wanted. You know, they obviously.
Well, you talk to any Scouser about this, and that one event kind of switched them on even more, like, you know, through the 80s and how bad it was, and then this kind of happens. You know, that what was happening there is a complete reflection on the government. So you've already wakened people up with your innate actions anyway.
What happened?
The proper Scousers have boycotted the sun since.
Yeah.
They won't because they blamed them.
You can't find the sun up there in some places.
No. And fair play to them, because that's what you need to do to these companies. That's exactly what you do to a company.
I think everybody needs to stop reading the sun. It's just bad for your health and bad for your mentality. But I mean, it's just
bad for your neighbours.
Like you said earlier, Matteo, with the EDL and that, but the skinhead movement moved into football violence. That's what happened. Yeah. Skinhead movement, and it died down, and then those guys become the top boys in football, and they just was instigating race hatred and everything, and that's when you had just the diabolical scenes on the terraces. Which
I would say I would rather bring my children to a march, a big march, right, like the 5th of November, than to a football area now. There would be nowhere I would take them there.
Lots of people take. See,
you try sitting in an Arsenal stand with a Chelsea, is it Chelsea? With a Chelsea
Tottenham.
Tottenham. All right then, yeah. Try sitting in Chelsea with Tottenham top. Do you know what I mean? It just ain't gonna happen. That in itself shows the divide is so big that they can't sit in the same stands together.
But what I mean, football in itself.
It's always teetering.
Football in itself was, if you think about it as a sport and the way it's been built up, it's almost like, you know, you're from one team, therefore you're supposed to hate a team that's got different colours than you.
So now we sort of see what's happening with the countries.
They're blue, and you're red. Yeah. You know, so you're red skin, you gotta hate the blue skin. You gotta hate the white and black.
So you can see their mentality with countries and immigrants. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the same thing.
It's the constant competition, isn't it? It's all, you know, you've got to be better than them. You know, all in everything. If somebody's got more than you hate them, and you know, it's like you're always jealous of what other people have got, instead of everybody's always looking externally to blame things on their lives, and they never look inside about what they can do to change.
I mean, that's what they were always saying with the left and right sort of divide in politics, you know, because the left are always saying, well, the problem is the economy, and it's this, that, and they start to go on into a long-ass argument as to why there is a problem with the system. Whereas the right just say, come to us, what's the problem? Brown people.
An organisation of correct people of singing from the same same thing. You can't argue with, like, that's what's always going to happen with left and right. We just seem to have, like...
But it also affects us. People don't see that. We don't have a world that's free to travel because there's borders. We can't just go and find a nice little waterfall somewhere and live because there's borders and visas and all that bollocks that goes with it. You know, it's sad.
Yeah, and probably some rich person owns it as well.
Yeah. So there's a negative effect. It doesn't, you know, it's not all... You know, there is a personal effect to us. I'd like to go and live in lots of different countries, but I'd have to apply for a visa first.
Yeah.
Two-way street. How many people do migrate from England a year? What are you going to say to them, that they've all got to come home because we don't want no more immigrants?
Well, you see, the media never covers that because it just makes it seem like, oh, you know, Britain's paved with gold and all these immigrants are coming here stealing our jobs. Bollocks. So most of those jobs didn't exist before they came here. And they were here since Empire days, and I mean, there is no native peoples of Britain and all this other crap that the BNP is talking about. It just depends on how far back you want to go, and I mean, all I think it is that the right have always been, I guess I said again, masters of marketing in the sense that they've got an easy message, which, frankly, quite thick individuals like football fans, if you want to aim at that, can understand, because they can't understand about economics. You know, it just goes straight above. I think our people's head. It goes above my head sometimes when you talk about the complexity of the economic system. Whereas with the UKIP, they just blamed it on immigrants. Straightforward answer, straightforward solution. Because all people want is a solution. They don't care how it comes about. They don't care what the problem is. They just want to know, how is life going to get better for me? Kick out the immigrants. Okay, I can understand that. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Sure. Is that us then for the day?
Are we going to talk about your film that you're doing, Matteo?
Yeah, we can mention it a little bit. So we're making a documentary called Anonymous: A Million Men about well, I mean, the idea of it is to first of all look at Anonymous as an organization, as a movement, predominantly through mainly due to its success, its marketing success, the fact that it's recognized worldwide, and it's the first ever movement not based in geography but based on ideas and groupings of people fighting for a cause, for a future, for a united world as such. But the documentary is going to be looking at obviously a variety of it, also cyber activism, how the internet's changed the way we perceive the world, how it's given us information on our fingertips, and how it's changing politics, because it has. I mean, it's allowed you to not just trust. You know, you don't have to just look at BBC for your daily news. You can look online now, and most people do. So the internet has changed politics completely to the point where a lot of MPs just, you know, they can't comprehend it. A lot of powers that be, a lot of governments can't comprehend it. And Anonymous, I believe, we want to sort of explore how it was born, the history of it, the sort of ideals, and if there is a future that they sort of envision or that people sort of think they want to see and so forth. We're going to be climaxing on the 1 Million Mask March, primarily because it is a global protest. It's a global celebration of ideas on a very, very iconic day for the UK's Parliament, which is arguably one of the first representative democracies in the world. And from there, I think we're going to be interviewing as well. David Dewhurst is going to be narrating it from the Occupy movement, part of it anyway. We're going to be interviewing Wave of Action for it, and of course Anonymous UK as well, and of course Chris Morgan as well.
And you've got a real
Chrissy
special
now.
Oh no, yeah. I'm unfortunately for these two. I'm the only winning party out of this. These two have adopted a ginger this week, and they've taken pity upon a dying gene pool, and going to try and help and nurture it, and maybe it might come back into existence. We never know. But yeah, I work with these two now, so I'm a wave guy.
Oh, well, there you go. No, I mean, we're really excited. We managed to hit our funding target and exceed it actually on Monday.
That's really cool. And you're gonna premiere it at Parliament, aren't you?
Yes, we're gonna be. Well, we're gonna be interviewing an MP for it as well, which is gonna be incredibly interesting to get hold of one.
Yeah.
I got my sights on a couple of people that I don't mention yet, huh?
What kind of MP? I could help you out on that.
Well, it's gonna have to be a Conservative, I think. It wouldn't work.
I can get a Labour.
Huh?
I can get Dem. I can get a Labour, a Lib Dem, and a Green. But Conservatives, pretty sticky situation there.
But you see, I mean, because they're in government right now, so it would just work so brilliantly if we could get hold of. I mean, I've got my eye on a couple of them, and I'm pretty sure I can get hold of them.
That'd be cool.
But no promises of that yet. But we're definitely gonna also interview an MP as sort of like the voice of the government as such. And the voice of Parliament, the voice of establishment, and so forth. And yeah, we're going to be premiering it in Parliament. The first screening of it will be in Parliament, and then we're going to be sending it into festivals and so forth, and then we're going to be releasing it online.
Cool.
Fab.
So when
do we get to go to Parliament then to watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we wear our masks? Can we wear non-masks?
Come in masked. Masked in Parliament. The Guy Fawkes has returned. We'd be really searched though. Do you know what? Actually, we'd probably be flagged as soon as we go to give our identifications that we're actually going to be going in there. There'd be like MP5 Hammond and Glocks ready, just like
Especially
red little beams on you. My shit getting real.
You could be our bulletproof jacket, Chris. We'll put you.
I can be your bulletproof ginge. Is that what it is? I'll be your bulletproof ginge. Just send Whipping Boy up in
Stop
front.
pulling a woe me card.
Look at him. Look at him. He's different. Point and ridicule him. He's not one of us.
And you sort of sneak past while they're concentrating on him. Scapegoat.
So what else have you got planned for that? So you're going to be talking to just doing the normal shout out UK kind of stuff, just grabbing activists and getting their opinions from the 5th of November, yeah?
On the 5th of November march, I mean, what we're going to be doing prior to that is we're going to be interviewing the K and P and Kiki. Interviewing them, we're going to be interviewing some of the organisers from the Million Mast March. David Juha is going to act as sort of the narrator to sort of set the scene for parts of it. One of the interviews we're going to hopefully have next to Karl Marx's gravestone. And then at the end of it is going to be the Million Mast March, you know, loads of footage on the day of that, and obviously grabbing some of the activists on the day that are protesting, so I'll talk to them a little bit about why they're there, what their ideas are, what they'd like to see change, you know, just, I mean, keep it as open as humanly possible. Like, we don't really know what could potentially happen from it, because what we hear may be something completely different to what we'd expect. You have absolutely no idea.
You could be recording a defining moment.
You can't predict it.
No, you can't. You can't. I mean, we've got a vague idea of where we want to be and who we want to potentially speak to in regards to the organisers, yourselves, and so on. But everything else, we're just going to go for the flow, get as much footage as humanly possible, and then just see what we get.
It's going to go down in some form of history. I think it's a date that that needs to be noted. I think you're doing.
I mean, that's the point. It's not about defining what Anonymous is. It's not about defining what protesting is about. It's about capturing a moment in human history, because the 5th of November and Anonymous and all this thing is creating history. You know, there are going to be generations looking back on this, studying it, because it is a moment in history. You know, you're creating history with this. The fact that a mask has been able to pop up in every protest around the globe, I mean, that in itself is fascinating. The fact that we've got a symbol of unity that is in every single country, with the exception of North Korea. I don't think I've seen Anonymous quite there yet. But in nearly every single country in the world, creating a symbol of unity among the people, where you're not a man, you're not a woman, you're not a black person, you're not a white person, you're just a human being, I think needs to be captured, because that is a moment in history that is never happened before, ever, in recorded history anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be all together that night anyway, because, like, it's like, oh, yeah, us group, yeah, we're together. There's
we need a bag carrier.
Yeah, you know. Oh, no, we got someone else for that. That's all right. No. I'm designated human shield for that evening.
Oh, careful.
I'm designated human shield for that day. I'm there like a ninja, ginger in fact. Yeah, but we're going to be together as a group, so hopefully we might bump into you in the evening and hopefully get a different perspective of what happened, because obviously at the end of last year, because this is going to be my year anniversary. This was my first March.
Oh, it's all right about you.
I know. It's really important to me, though. This is my benchmark. This is my milestone that I measure my activist lifestyle by now. It's like, yeah, November 5th. I've been active for 1 year. I'm a baby. I'm a whippersnapper.
Wait till you get to 5 years. You get that feeling that.
You get the life of activists really goes like Benjamin Button really, really quickly.
This year's been the most exciting year of experience.
Yeah, because that could bring us onto your little thing, Kiki, about, you know, labels for terrorists and.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut off, but I've got to run. So I'll see you next week.
All right.
Okay.
See you later, Matteo.
Bye.
Bye.
We still going to discuss it?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I reckon leave it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, let it clear. Let the air clear. Let your mind clear. Because no matter what, at the moment, you're going to be coming from one direction. And we're not talking about the boy band. Maybe take a moment for yourself and like you always
I'm gonna
say to me.
hop out of papers today though, guys, because I'm gonna have dinner with the kids.
Yeah, well, it's 8 o'clock now.
Yeah, we've eaten rice.
Yeah.
And you know that shit pea that we were eating at yours. We've been eating that
Yeah.
all week.
What was it?
This is so easy, kids. Look.
What is it?
It's just
we
like
were
that
just
rock.
really late, and we just grabbed anything. The co-op don't really have a great vegetarian range, so we just grabbed
It
these
was
like
awful.
microwave
Cabbage.
pots with rice and sauce.
All right then, guys. It was nice chatting
just
to you. And are you chilling with the kids all evening? Are you gone from now, Kiki, or are you about online? Because I'll let you know what happened with. All right, we'll chat online then. All right.
Yeah, I can sneak